The Mysterious Comet, Part 2, Cometary, Earth Contact and Life. We pass for a while from meteors to comets for the purpose of examining the relation of these strange visitors with our solar system generally and the Earth in particular. Exactly what distinction should be drawn between a comet and a meteor is not too simple. For instance, was the body seen in Rome on December 24th, 1924, a big meteor, or was it a comet? The only tentative definition I can offer is that a comet is a celestial body of size seen by observers in the heavens, and that a meteor is a portion of the drift of a comet which only becomes visible when it penetrates our atmosphere. On the other hand, a passing comet can, and I suggest not infrequently does, penetrate our atmosphere. Astronomers are extremely hazy about the composition of a comet. Professor Howe, in Study of the Sky, defines a comet as a, quote, loose aggregation of small bodies like so much grape shot and with particles like sand. I quote Professor Howe as typical of many other alleged authorities, despite the evidence of Comet and other meteors confronting them. If a meteor of the size and solidity of Comet was itself only a portion of a once larger body, a comet, how would the whole contain nothing more valuable than small bodies like grape shot? Do not let us forget to add, quote, and with particles like sand. I should have thought that the particles are sand or they are not. And we shall see that comets do bring quantities not only of sand, but of chalk, clay, and other terrestrial ingredients. Professor Howe's definition must be described as utterly incomplete. We have Professor A.W. Bickerston, also, the professor whose theory of colliding suns upset astronomers some years ago and caused him the loss of his appointment. How tolerant this scientific body is with a thirst for knowledge, says that measured by earthly standards the mass of a comet must be considerable. Suppose it has, he says, quote, a mass 1/millionth that of the Earth, or 6,000 million tons. What then? The answer is in the affirmative. It would split the Earth asunder and plunge it into disaster as far as living creatures are concerned. It would practically blot out all that has gone before, and it might lead to the creation of new species, as other geological ages have done. Professor Bickerston recognizes this, for which much thanks. Quote, optimists who imagine that we should suffer no ill effects from a collision with the head of a comet would receive a shock if such a thing actually happened. Not one of them would be left alive to recant. Daily Mail, June 4th, 1927. Another astronomer, Dr. Edmund Neison, in his work Astronomy, defines comets as a system of highly rarefied gases surrounding a mass of meteors mostly small. He thinks that these meteors are mostly the size of peas, but admits that some have fallen nearly a ton in weight. It seems to me astonishing logic that if some nearly a ton weight had fallen, why those which he knows not of should be mostly the size of peas. Evidence of the solidity of the nucleus of a comet has been afforded by certain observations. When Donati's comet of 1890 was passing, it obliterated an 11th magnitude star. In 1908, Moorhouse's comet concealed from view 5 or 6 stars, and if comets were composed of swarms of meteors about the size of peas or grapes, they would scarcely blot out existing stars. Sir Isaac Newton thought comets were fixed, solid, and compact bodies. Halley believed their contact with the Earth as by no means impossible, and Chien, a leading astronomer of the same age, came to the conclusion that they were the cause of great cataclysms of the past on Earth, and may again bring about the same thing. The astronomers of the 17th and 18th centuries had a far better idea of the true functions of these bodies than have their successors of the present time. The spectroscope indeed gives us some clue to the character of comets. They are composed of a solid body called a nucleus or coma or head, which is often shielded by a nebula. The nucleus spreads out in gradually shaded and thinning degrees until it becomes the tail, more or less extended and filmy, spreading over a considerable area. The spectroscope enables us to identify the gases known on Earth, mainly hydrogen, hydrocarbon, nitrogen, sodium, iron vapor, magnesium, calcium, the deadly blue cyanogen. Is that how you say it? cyanogen. Cyanogen, I guess, and several others. These gases are identified by their colour and by their action: red predominating, but white, yellow, pink, blue, bluish green, and violet all being present. The gases forming the tail reveal their character when approaching the sun. Some assume remarkable contortions, which give the comet the appearance of a vast, fabulous monster, such as a dragon or a fiery serpent, breathing fire and lashing wildly its tail in agony as it plunges onward to its predestined fate. The effect of the sun's magnetic rays upon the wanderer through the expanse of heaven is evidenced in constant changes in shape and size. It twists and contorts itself, arches its back, sometimes throws its tail above its head, and curves itself into a state of frenzied energy. There can be little doubt in the minds of those who have studied ancient religions that the comet is the origin of devil worship, and the imagery which gave the world myths of dragons and serpents breathing fire. These alarming movements are actually caused by the solar perturbation upon the preponderating gases, which as the result of it are attracted or repelled. Hydrogen, for instance, is known to project in a straight line away from the sun. Hydrocarbons assume curves and spiral form. Iron vapors produce a pronounced curve near the coma or nucleus, like the dragon arching its back. In some comets, the tails are limited and a nebula surrounds the nucleus. Sometimes again it adopts a fan-like form like the tail of a hawk or an eagle, whence was probably devised the beautiful winged globe symbol of the Egyptians, Phoenicians, and other ancient civilized races who studied astronomy. This symbol, introduced in all the continents at some distant time, comprised an orb or globe with wings, a fan-like or hawk's tail, and a serpent's head crowning the orb. It embraced, in short, all the characteristics of a comet: its nucleus, its tail, its rapidity, and its destructive power, while the symbol was painted on the pylons of temples in brilliant colours to correspond with its flaming gases. Mr. George F. Chalmers, The Study of the Comets, says that comets without tails outnumber those with them, but it may be objected on the other hand that much depends upon the angle of a comet's approach. If a comet moves along on a parallel course with the Earth, the tail is obviously more visible than if it approaches us. If it heads straight towards the Earth, the nucleus, a shining mass, more compact and brilliant than its accompanying nebulosity, largely blots out its tail from vision. The nucleus, the seat of its greatest activity, a vast incandescent dynamo, spurts out jets towards the sun or throws off masses of vapour with frequent explosions that are driven back towards the tail. In a sense, if more comets under observation appear to be without tails, it is probably tantamount to saying that more approach us than pass along horizontally. It also leads to the reflection that many of the alleged, quote, minor planets or, quote, asteroids, which astronomers proclaim as such, and, quote, nova stars are no other than comets. If a comet passes horizontally, the movements of the tail as the body rushes at a violent and destructive rate towards perihelion, contact with the sun can be studied day by day, granted fair weather. These movements vary considerably according to the reaction towards the solar radiation. Morehouse's comet of 1908, for example, exhibited pronounced ultraviolet hues, and explosions in the tail revealed the presence of cyanogen. Bright jets or streams of light are projected from the nucleus, and their action betokens the character of the gases. Some jets resemble ram's horns and are due to iron vapor. Others, like goat's horns streaming away in a curve, indicate hydrocarbon. Often the intense magnetic attraction of the sun compels the nucleus to throw out a protective nebula like a sort of umbrella, semicircular and reminiscent of that ancient and very sacred device called the Tau, found on many monuments and itself the precursor of the cross. The Tau is one of many symbols of the past, when the gods and most of the goddesses represented various aspects of nature, and dominating all the meteor sender. Behind the ancient devil worship, suppressed by force at a later time, stands an eternal truth, yet one which became abused and decadent, as all truths tend to become when they get in the hands of a close sect.